Nigel Farage, Prime Minister. Two words that, not too long ago, would have had Westminster's finest spitting out their Earl Grey. And yet here we are, because the polls are in, the local elections have spoken, and Britain is looking at the political map wondering how on earth Farage went from pub provocateur to the most likely next occupant of number 10. Let's set the scene. Thursday's local elections were supposed to be a routine midterm checkup. A bit uncomfortable, maybe some awkward readings, but nothing the doctor couldn't explain away. Instead, Keir Starmer walked into the surgery and got told he needed emergency surgery, a new diet, and possibly a new career. Reform UK posted a net gain of over 1,300 seats across England, seizing control in traditional Labour and Conservative strongholds alike. Over 1,300 seats. That's not a political wave. That's a political tsunami with Nigel Farage standing on the shore in a wetsuit, grinning. And Reform wasn't supposed to win where they won. Everyone expected them to hoover up the old red wall, the Midlands, parts of the North, the towns that feel forgotten. Sure, but Essex, Suffolk, Norfolk, Havering, in outer London, Reform even took control of Essex Council, right in Keamy Badenoch's own backyard. That's not just winning the argument. That's winning the argument in your opponent's living room while wearing their slippers. Now here's the number that should make every Labour spin doctor stare at the ceiling at 3 a.m. Voting intention for Labour nationally sits at just 18%, second to Reform at 25% according to YouGov. Labour, the party that won a landslide barely 2 years ago, has collapsed to 18%. That's not a dip. That's a cliff edge. And Keir Starmer? His approval rating stands at 22% approval and 70% disapproval, making him the least popular sitting Prime Minister in UK history. The least popular ever. Not in recent memory. Ever. Britain has had some truly dire Prime Ministers and Starmer has somehow managed to finish last in that race too. An achievement of sorts, you have to admit. So what happens when the PM is historically unpopular and Reform is racking up seats like a supermarket sweep? You get the question that nobody in the political establishment wants to answer out loud. Could Nigel Farage actually become Prime Minister? Reform figures believe their national vote share from this performance would have been around 29 to 30%, and with British politics this fractured, analysts are now putting Farage in the frame as the most likely next Prime Minister. Let that sink in. The man who spent decades being dismissed, mocked, and written off by every commentator on every panel show is now the frontrunner. The establishment called him a clown so many times they forgot to ask whether the clown was winning. And it gets better. An Ipsos poll found that for the first time in their political poll series, Farage leads Starmer 33% to 30% on who Britons would prefer as Prime Minister. Head to head, Farage beats Starmer. That's not a rogue poll. That's a trend. A Find Out Now survey had Reform leading on 34% of the vote, with Labour at just 18% and the Tories collapsed to 15%. On those numbers, Reform wouldn't just win a general election. They'd get a landslide. The kind of landslide that makes 1997 look like a squeaker. Now let's be fair. And I know, fairness is a radical concept in British politics right now. There are real structural obstacles between Farage and number 10. Britain's Faust-past-the-post system means Reform must win plurality votes in individual constituencies, not just rack up a massive national share. And analysts note they have historically struggled to do that at a general election level. It's a brutal system. You can win 30% of the country and still end up with fewer MPs than a party on 20% that happens to be geographically concentrated. Reform knows this. Farage knows this. Which is precisely why these local election wins matter so much. They are building local infrastructure, name recognition, and credibility in areas they've never held before. You can't just be popular nationally. You have to be the name on the door in hundreds of constituencies. And Reform is now, methodically, putting their names on doors. Meanwhile, back in the Labour bunker, Starmer is insisting he's not going anywhere. I'm not going to walk away and plunge the country into chaos, he said, assuring the Labour faithful he would deal with the challenges he was elected to fix. Which is a bold claim from the man who caused quite a lot of the chaos to begin with. His internal critics aren't buying it either. Labour peer Lord Maurice Glasman told The Telegraph that Starmer cannot conceivably continue as a credible Prime Minister any longer. That's not a backbencher having a wobble. That's someone in his own house telling him the building's on fire. Labour is now genuinely at risk of losing its status as a national party in Britain, having been routed not just in England but in Wales, a historic stronghold, where Welsh First Minister Eluned Morgan lost her own seat and immediately resigned as Welsh Labour leader. Wales, Labour's heartland for a century. Gone. If that doesn't focus minds in Westminster, nothing will. The political establishment spent 20 years telling us Farage was irrelevant, unelectable, a protest vote, a pub ball with a pint, and every single time, those same people ended up looking like the ones who hadn't done their homework. Reform is now the most popular party in Britain. Farage is now the preferred Prime Minister in head-to-head polling. And the May 2026 local elections have just handed him over 1,300 reasons to believe the general election in 2029 is very much in play. Britain is being reshaped in real time. And if you want to stay ahead of every twist, every poll, every political earthquake as it happens, you know where to be. Subscribe to British Reform, hit the bell, and never miss a thing. Because the next few years are going to be anything but boring.